When this definition is taken at its face value, it broadly describes anyone.
Somebody in my house doing something to my family, abusing my mother, my sister, my daughter in front of me, and you telling me that I had to sit down and watch that and wait for opportunity to call the police for them to tell me you don't have a car for them to reach there right now, they will come next hour? That is what you telling me, Minister Scotland?
It could be a guest who refuses to leave.
The vote on Trinidad's home invasion bill wasn't just numbers on paper. The government unanimously voted in favor of the bill, while the opposition also voted unanimously, but in a different direction. Minister Keith Scotland explained their reasoning, and it's more revealing than you might expect. Thanks to TTT, we have a video that is basically a compilation of all the most important parts of discussion that took place in Parliament. So let me take a look at it.
Housebreaking is an offense, burglary is an offense, robbery is an offense, but home invasion is not. In the lead up to the general election, we promised that we would bring this legislation to Parliament, and today we fulfilled that promise.
So basically what AG John Jeremy is talking about, before this bill was passed, you had no right to protect your property from home invaders.
As he piloted the home invasion bill in the House of Representatives on Wednesday, Attorney General John Jeremy reminded of the prevalence of the crime, arguing that there needs to be a law to treat directly with the issue.
Only just last week, a senior government official was robbed at a home in Belmont in front of an elderly person and child. That experience was reported in the Trinidad Express 4 or 5 days ago.
The report that Minister John Jeremy is trying to get across, just days ago, a government official was a victim of a home invasion where it took place in front of an elderly and a minor. Even if that government official had a licensed firearm, had a way to protect themselves and their family, there was so much red tape involved using your legal firearm to defend yourself and your property. Not just a firearm, anything that could be deemed as a weapon. You will have to face the brunt of the law while maybe even paying for medical bills for the home invader.
Cases are numerous, the stories horrifying, and the traumas to families and communities can last a lifetime.
The legislation seeks to empower law-abiding citizens, giving them the legal right to protect themselves, their families, and their properties from intruders, using deadly force if necessary.
Anybody in the comment section, anybody who agree with the opposition staying away or refraining from voting yes to this bill, how is this a wrong thing? How is allowing people to protect themselves, their family, the possessions that they work so hard to get? How is that a wrong thing? Well, Minister Keith Scotland is about to tell you why the opposition vote no on this bill. A bill that's designed to help you protect yourself from home invasion. So let me hear his side of it.
In his contribution, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain South, Keith Scotland said those on the opposite side are not opposed to effective measures against violent intrusion, but he believes this bill is not the solution. He expressed concern over innocent lives being lost due to the law.
A home invader, according to the definition of this bill, means a person who knowingly enters or remains at a dwelling house in which he is not an occupant with the intention to carry out a home invasion.
Let me take that apart very carefully. But before we do that, let me go and listen to it one more time. These are the words coming out of Minister Keith Scotland's mouth himself. He's saying these words that he's reading directly from the bill, right? Let me go and hear exactly what it is.
According to the definition of this bill, means a person who knowingly enters or remains at a dwelling house in which he is not an occupant with the intention to carry out a home invasion.
A person who remains at a dwelling who is not an occupant and has the intention to carry out a home invasion. Let me hear how Minister Scotland going to rephrase this in the most poetic way, because you had to call it poetry, right? Because it's only poetry that you could read a literal sentence and leave the meaning of that up to interpretation. So he reinterpret this whole statement into his own explanation in his mind, and this is what he come up with.
Mr. Speaker, when this definition is taken at its face value, it broadly describes anyone.
How? When this definition is taken at its face value, it broadly defines anyone. How? I would like anybody who agrees with what Mr. Scotland is saying here to please inform me. Comment down below. Get on the comment section and explain to me how can this apply to anyone. The law clearly states, as read by Minister Scotland himself, any person in a dwelling who is asked to leave, who is not an occupant of the dwelling, and has the intention to carry out a home invasion. How can that apply to anyone? Please let me know in the comment section below. How?
It could be a guest who refuses to leave.
If you are a guest in my home, I invite you and you come over. And while we're drinking some beers, you start to get violent. You start to get angry for no reason whatsoever. And I tell you to leave. You are no longer welcome in my home. Scratch all that. If you come over by me because I welcome you and I tell you it's time to go, you are no longer welcome in my home. And if you stay with the intention of a home invasion, then I have the right to protect myself. Other than that, I could just call the police and say, hey, I have a trespasser in my home. I invited him over, I asked him to leave multiple times, and he refused to leave. He's not violent, he's not causing no bodily harm. Yeah, he probably getting on like an asshole, but that is not a home invasion. How? I saying something that is in an alien language? Did the law say something that was in an alien language? Was the law meant to be poetry for Minister Scotland to now interpret according to his feelings? Because nothing he say here have logic behind it. Everything is an interpretation on how he feel. It have nothing to do what is actually written in law. I probably wrong, yes? I don't know.
A tenant in a landlord-tenant dispute.
A landlord and a tenant in a landlord dispute. You just read the law itself. If you are a tenant, you are an occupant of the dwelling. Jesus Christ, boy. You can't tell me that I smarter than a minister who holding a government office right now. You can't tell me that, right? You can't tell me that I smarter than a minister who holding a seat in parliament right now. You can't tell me that I could understand a law as a layman better than a minister whose job it is to understand a law. But I'm sure some people going to still side with Minister Scotland on what he's saying. Some things don't make sense in Trinidad at all.
Attorney General John Jeremy said there are provisions to prevent abuse of the law.
The bill provides that the defenses would not be valid if 1, the individual against whom the force is used has a right to be in the dwelling, the force used against the invader is grossly disproportionate, the occupier had been engaged in criminal activity, or an individual is a law enforcement officer lawfully executing duties and the occupier knew or should have known at the time that that was so.
It cannot happen if the person is an occupant. So if you're renting in a place, you and your landlord can reach that argument where he could physically abuse you, saying that you don't belong there. If you rent up to date and you're renting, you have a lease, you are an occupant of that property. The second point that he made was about the excessive force and the need for excessive force, which brings me back to the first point that I was making earlier. You're not just going to beat an invited guest because you asked him to leave one time and he refused. There are avenues in place to get a trespasser out of your property. A trespasser. This bill was designed for home invasion. Why are you misconfabulating the two? The third point that he made, if the homeowner is involved in illegal activity, especially gang activity. So if the homeowner is a gang leader and you went in his property to tell him, hey, stop your gangness and stop selling drugs or stop promoting violence in the neighborhood, and he beat your ass, then the gang leader, who is the homeowner, will be held liable and accountable for the injuries that he inflicts on you. Right? You're following so far, right? And then the last one that you talk about, the right of police being on your property. Now, if a police have a warrant and they come into your property and you know that it is a police officer conducting police business, you have no right to cause bodily harm to that person. You understand so far, right? Because I feel like you major in poetry, not in law, or not in parliamentary business.
The bill is seeking to provide that a person has no duty to retreat when acting in self-defense, to which opposition member Keith Scotland deemed as irresponsible.
It's irresponsible for you as a homeowner to want to protect your property and the people in your family that you love. That is irresponsible. According to the man who tell you when Imbert say that we raise gas 3 times and nobody riot, so we're going to raise it as 4th time and we will see if they got riot. And then he started to laugh on national TV. He was the man a couple days after in Parliament who made the statement that if you cannot afford gas to put in your car to go to work, try riding a bicycle, you might lose some weight. And if you cannot afford gas to cook your food on a stove, try investing in a coal pot and use old wood and coals to cook your food. This is the statement made by this same man when they were in power. You want to come and tell me now that he have your best interest in mind? But of course, he's going to have a bunch of followers behind him who regurgitating the same poetic bullshit that he regurgitating here.
Minister of Defense and Minister in the Ministry of Homeland Security, Wayne Sturge, defended the motion.
We are saying in essence that if you come into my house at 2 a.m. and you are armed and I am outnumbered and I get the opportunity, and the common law says that once I have the opportunity to strike you, I don't have to wait. Unlike what some people think, your back, if the bandit's back is turned but he's still in my house at 2 a.m., what should I do? Wait for him to turn back around? Figure out if he's a Dwen? That's my opportunity.
Minister Sturge.
That is people making laws based on common sense, not on poetic justice. Kendrick Lamar, this is not poetic justice. This is reality. This is real life. This is what the population of Trinidad and Tobago facing for so much of years. And now that somebody correcting the issues that people facing on a daily basis, you want to jump up and all of a sudden become a poetic justice activist fighting for what? For what exactly? To get my right to defend myself at my hands? Somebody in my house doing something to my family, abusing my mother, my sister, my daughter in front of me, and you telling me that I had to sit down and watch that and wait for an opportunity to call the police for them to tell me they don't have a car for them to reach there right now, they will come next hour? That is what you telling me, Minister Scotland? You telling me that anybody could fall under the bracket of a home invader? Who is the anybody you're talking about? And anybody who support Minister Scotland and his point of view, please explain it to me. Explain how what is stipulated in the law, word for word, how it could be misconstrued as anybody. Explain that fact to me. And once again, don't come at me with no racist remark and no political affiliation. All right? Because everybody who against what I saying, they don't come at me with a good logical argument. They come with a racist remark. I mean, I really don't care. But at the end of the day, if you want to debate, let me debate like big people. Let me talk about logic and facts, not about race and ethnicity. Now, I hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget, like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified on every video that I post. Leave your comment down below. Let me know your take on this, because I know it's going to have a whole bunch of people who are going to say that Keith Scotland was right. Explain to me how. Leave race and politics out of it, and let me figure out how taking your right away to defend yourself and your family in your home is a right thing. I hope you enjoyed this one. See everybody in the next one. Later.